Right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really profound and honestly a completely overlooked psychological transition. We spend years, sometimes literally decades, focusing entirely on a single monumental goal, but we almost never talk about what happens the day after we actually achieve it. So we're going to explore the core themes from a fascinating piece of source material called The Silent Graduation, Life After the Doctorate. If you've ever poured your absolute heart and soul into a massive project, an academic degree, or just any huge long-term endeavor, only to feel surprisingly hollow once you cross that finish line, well, this is absolutely going to resonate with you. Let's map out this journey from the very final hurdle of a PhD to the surprisingly jarring reality of what comes next.
To really ground us in the source material, picture this. Meet Amanda. She's a newly minted PhD, and she's sitting alone in her apartment. It's a Tuesday morning, and it's surprisingly quiet. She's just holding a cup of coffee that's slowly getting cold, completely forgotten, while she stares at an empty wall. That specific spot on the wall is exactly where her hard-earned graduation certificate is eventually going to hang. But right now, it's just a blank, empty space. The text actually opens with this incredibly evocative line, "The silence arrived on a Tuesday morning." And we're not talking about that peaceful kind of silence that invites you to rest after a long trip. No, this was an unsettling, heady quiet. It perfectly sets the stage for the isolating reality of finally reaching the absolute peak of academic achievement.
I kind of want to slow down for a second here, because this quote brilliantly captures the crushing, totally anticlimactic reality of the whole doctoral journey. The source notes, "There is no ovation for the solitude, the revisions, the years of unseen labor, only silence and what you choose to build beyond it." Just think about that phrase for a moment. Unseen labor. It's all those countless hours you spend completely alone in a library. It's the hundreds of tiny, painstaking revisions that literally no one else will ever even notice. It's the sheer weight of the isolation required to actually produce a dissertation. When it's all finally done, well, there's no marching band, there's no crowd cheering in your living room, there's just you, the silence, and the sudden, complete stop of all that all-consuming work.
It's this massive, jarring contrast. On one hand, the process of getting a PhD is described as years of noise, right? It's just this constant, high-stakes barrage. You've got seminars to attend, rigid deadlines, endless rounds of revisions, and those intense academic defenses where you literally have to prove your worth. Your brain just gets wired for this constant adrenaline and high stress. But then, bam, the incident's over, you are dropped into this unsettling quiet. A random Tuesday morning. Your coffee is getting cold, the walls are empty, and the only thing you hear is the ticking of a clock, which just makes the emptiness feel even bigger. The human brain just doesn't switch gears seamlessly from years of chaotic, high-pressure noise to a complete standstill. That abrupt shift is exactly what triggers this whole psychological turbulence.
Amanda now has two incredibly prestigious letters right in front of her name, Doctor. But as the source makes perfectly clear, those two letters definitely weren't just handed over. They were paid for. They required immense sweat and effort. They were built on a foundation of just countless sleepless nights. And as the text points out, humorously, but let's be honest, totally accurately, they were fueled by way more caffeine than any human should ever consume. The whole thing culminated in these grueling, exhausting defenses. So because Amanda earned those letters through such a massive, physically and mentally draining effort, the sudden halt of all that activity is like hitting a brick wall. You can't just walk away from that level of intense output and expect to feel totally normal the very next day.
So the real trap here is the massive cognitive dissonance Amanda went through. During the absolute hardest, darkest stretches of her PhD, she imagined this exact moment of completion probably thousands of times. She expected pure relief. She expected to feel this complete, unadulterated triumph. And maybe most of all, she expected absolute clarity about what to do next. But the reality? Vastly different. Instead of relief, she just felt a profound emptiness, punctuated by that ticking wall clock. Instead of triumph, she felt this unnerving physical pressure right against her chest. And instead of clarity, she was just hit with a sudden debilitating lack of direction. This huge mismatch between what we expect and what actually happens, that is the core of the silent graduation.
And that inevitably brings us to this simple, deeply unsettling question that just hangs there in the silence of Amanda's apartment. Now what? It's a question that really presses on you. The rigid structure of academia, the syllabus, the constant feedback from an advisor, the crystal clear path to graduation, it's all suddenly gone. But here's the thing. This question is actually the pivot point in our explainer today. It's the exact moment we transition from the passive completion of a degree where you're just sitting around waiting for applause that isn't coming, to the realization that what happens next requires you to actively create something. The question, "Now what?" isn't a dead end at all. It's a prompt.
Faced with that incredibly heavy question, the source tells us Amanda did something crucial. She took a deep breath. And in that moment, she made a massive mindset shift. She realized this concept of a disguised beginning. It's this profound realization that an ending, even finishing a massive life-defining milestone like a doctorate, isn't actually a finish line. It's simply the starting point for building a newly purposeful life. Endings are basically just beginnings wearing a disguise. Once Amanda realized her graduation wasn't her final destination, the silence in her apartment completely changed. It stopped being this scary void and started becoming a blank canvas.
When we really distill the core themes of the text down, we get a clear framework for moving beyond the silence. The material urges us to look beyond the dissertation. First things first, we have to view the PhD, or really any huge achievement, as a launching pad. It is not the final destination. We need to actively treat these endings as those disguised beginnings we just talked about. And honestly, the biggest takeaway here is realizing that true purpose isn't actually found in the act of completion itself. Completion is just a fleeting moment in time. True purpose, that lies in having the courage to begin again. It's about taking all that unseen labor, all that incredible discipline you built, and actively using it to construct a purposeful life beyond the degree. The PhD was really only the start.
Listen, if the insights we've covered in this explainer are hitting a little too close to home for you right now, if you're sitting in your own version of a quiet apartment with cooling coffee, trying to figure out a post-graduation slump, or the weird emptiness of finishing a major milestone, the source material offers a great way to dive deeper. You can reach out directly to the email address provided in the text, that's thrivemole@yahoo.com, to order your very own copy of The Silent Graduation and explore this entire psychological journey further. It's just an incredibly vital resource for navigating this highly specific but almost never discussed phase of life.
So, we've explored the years of noise, the sudden jarring halt, the unnerving quiet, and that profound mental shift you need to see an ending as a brand new beginning. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final, genuinely provocative thought from our source material today. Now that the noise has finally settled, now that the defenses are over and those long years of unseen labor are officially done, what will you choose to build beyond the silence? How are you going to harness your courage, take a deep breath, and create your next purposeful beginning? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep building, and I will see you next time.